Each producer creates a good in a non-grey world in the player's tableau. It's like there's a magnet between these sentences. Each producer creates a good on a non-grey world in the player's... do you know what? This Roll for the Galaxy rulebook is just as obnoxious as the Race for the Galaxy one. Elaine, do you know the grimdark future of the 41st millennium?
Yeah.
Do you know there's like only war in it?
Yeah, but they must have like pickles.
Nope, no gherkins.
Alright, but they must have ballet.
No, only war.
Alright, but they must have to go and wee somewhere.
Well, I think actually Space Marines have a thing inbuilt in their armor where it collects from the inside.
Okay. But what about orcs? They don't wear armor.
Tough shit. Forbidden Stars is an odd game. A little bit like that uncle that you know who spent the last 20 years living in a seal sanctuary trying to discover the intricacies of their mating habits. But maybe odd is not the right word to use here.
No, maybe like your uncle, that has negative connotations. Maybe the word we're looking for really here is unusual. Because this game feels like it's from a bygone time.
When Twilight Imperium 3 used to roam through the desert and Android was the 7-hour romp that you wanted it to be. And this is a long game. And you see, board games throughout time, they've sort of condensed themselves and became crisper, sweeter, shorter. 2-3 hours is the perfect length. This is not a 2-3 hour game. In fact, I think time ceased existing when we were playing it and there was only war left.
Yeah, it's a long game, but it's not overly complicated. In fact, we felt it was quite like a 4X game, or at least 3/4 of a 4X game. You haven't got the explore element because you can see everything from the beginning, but you have got expand, exploit and exterminate, and there is a lot of extermination. You will fight a lot of battles in this game, and that is what makes it feel a little bit like a war game. But at its heart, at its core, it really is a board game because you're still building your units, you're still building factories and cities and bastions, and you are upgrading your combat cards, and all this ties into the grand scheme, the grand plan that is Forbidden Stars.
Like Elaine mentioned, it is a simple game because at its heart, all you're doing is you're issuing 4 different kinds of orders. But it's the limitations that are inbuilt into those orders that make it deep and complex. And I know it's deep because when I played Forbidden Stars, there was this moment where I resolved an order and thought, God, there was so many other things I could have done. And that's where I know that there is depth and decision making in the game. And these orders are really, really cool because the limitations really make you think about what you need to do. So, for example, the deploy order where I can make more space fish and put them on the space, or make more of these guys, which are, believe it or not, called knobs. It sounds simple. You spend some money and you put them down and voila, presto. But actually, it's not as simple as that because first of all, you have to buy the spaceships units and then you have to buy the ground units and only then you can buy buildings. But you can't put buildings on a space that doesn't have your units, but you cannot put units on a space that has buildings, and then you can only build units if you have a factory in the system, and on and on and on it goes, right? And you think, oh my God, there's a lot to it, and yes, there is, but is it cool? My God, yes it is.
The depth doesn't just come from which order token you decide to play, but also the order in which you want to play them. Because if I pop my order token down here and then my opponent, the knob that he is, puts one on top, it's gone on the stack, so my order token won't resolve until his does. So you're trying to think about the order in which the tokens are going to resolve and what your opponent is doing, and the last token that you might place might in fact resolve first. And that can lead to a little bit of analysis paralysis because you might have this brilliant plan of exactly what you're going to do and exactly in which the order tokens are going to resolve, and your opponent might just mess that up. However, all is not lost, because if you've placed a token down that you realise you really can't use now because, you know, maybe you wanted to build something but you don't have enough material to build it anymore because of what's happened in the round, you can sacrifice whatever you were going to do and instead put your token on here and turn it into an event card, which will resolve at the end of the round.
Event cards are cool because not only do they smell great, but also they are specific to each faction, and they will do one-time effects at the end of the round that will either trigger immediately, or if it's a scheme card, that you can save it and trigger it at a specific time. But the other thing that they do is they move the warp storms, and warp storms are these tokens that are placed on the board that effectively block movement, because nobody wants to book a cruise on a fish ship to go to the warp storm, and that changes the entire layout of the battlefield, because whilst the map stays static and the way that it is, movement no longer follows the same patterns, and certainly a player that you thought you will be able to take next round is just no longer there, which puts you in a bit of a predicament and forces you to rethink what you were doing. Fortunately, it doesn't happen often enough, and the lucky part is that every player gets to move one of these tokens, but it does bring enough variance into the game to make it just a little bit less static and more dynamic and exciting.
But that's not it. The event cards aren't the only thing that's different for each faction. The factions are asymmetrical, so your units are all different, your faction special abilities are different, and your upgrade cards are different as well.
And the upgrade cards are pretty cool because each faction has their own specific combat deck that comes with 10 cards. And there's a sort of deck building element going on here. And that's not to say that these cards are very basic, like in Dominion, where you just get like a victory point card. No, there's depth between choosing which one to play. However, you get another faction-specific combat upgrade deck, which is chock full of awesome cards, so you can swap them out from the basic deck. And when you buy these upgrades, put the new babies in. And they're really good. They're very good. All of them.
And we found that when we played the game, the units were very balanced as well. The armies were really balanced. So although the units are different, they're all kind of on the same level. So if you have a orc knob fighting an elder wraith guard, it feels balanced.
And this says, wow.
And that says, wow.
That isn't even, it's not a word.
Yeah, it is. Wah!
What does it mean?
It means wah! Charging into battle. It's knobs. They're charging into battle.
Can you use it in a sentence?
Bye, Mum. I'm off to the shops. Wah!
We built this map specifically for the review, and this is the scale of the map for a 4-player game, but we actually never have played a 4-player game. I'm not sure I want to, because already with 3 players, the game takes so long, and with 3 players, it would look something like that. The map would be just a little bit smaller. And the same thing goes for a 2-player game. If you want to play a 2-player game again, you just take bits away and you have this. And this feels very different to a 3-player game, actually, because it's more like a local skirmish between 2 factions, whereas a 3-player game feels like an actual space opera. And possibly the 3-player game is best, although the game really does scale very well. I think there's just more intrigue between 3 players. However, I do have a caveat here. A 2-player game can take only up to 2 hours, which is nice, quick and punchy, whereas a 3-player game can really expand that play time. Up to, we played for 7. 7 is a long time. And the reality of that is that you have to choose what's right for you, because the game is awesome either way. Forbidden Stars has a really cool flow to it, where for the first couple of rounds of the game, everyone's just going to be building up. They're going to get units, they're going to get new upgrades, they're going to get new buildings, and it all seems pretty cool. And like, you're kind of planning what you're going to do the next round. You're going to get even a cooler unit, like this Wraith Knight. Things are going to be great, but the thing is, the game is played for objective points, so determined by the number of players, you will try to get a certain number of objective points that are on your opponent's planets, and eventually, in about round 3 or so, someone will see an opportunity, and they're just gonna go for it. They're just gonna grab all their army, put it on that planet, and they're gonna go for it. And after that, it's like a domino effect. It erupts into full global scale war. It's like a global turf war of some sort on a global scale. I'd rather hear both sides of the tale. See, it's not just about races, but places, faces.
And so you might be having this massive galactic battle, the biggest in the galaxy, with your Titans and your Gargants and everything, and you might think it's the most important battle in the galaxy. But you've got a lonely cultist here and an aspect warrior, and they're battling it out themselves for this planet here. And if only the cultist can get the planet from this aspect warrior, that might just be a game changer.
I'm not going to spend my life being a color. Come, sit down right next to me and I'll tell you all about combat, because that is the most exciting part about Forbidden Stars. And I'm not even joking. Yes, we said there is a lot of combat in this game, but my God, have they worked on combat really, really well. It's not just chucking dice at each other and seeing who gets a better result. And that's what makes this game so spectacular. Yes, there are dice, and actually they're really, really cool looking. I don't know what it is about them, but it's the color pattern, I think, for me, that makes them very edible. I don't know, I just want to eat them. Maybe not. But eventually you will resolve an advance order many a time throughout the game that will create a conflict area. And they can be either 4 ships or units, but you can only resolve 1 conflict area per advance order. And once they do move in there, you're going to tally up how many dice your units have. And they are listed on your faction sheet right here. And there is a maximum of 8 dice per side. And yes, there are exactly 16 in the box, in case you were wondering. And once you've done that, you'll roll the dice, you'll get some results, and there are 3 different types of results. The defense results will basically mean you get 1 defense, and the bolter results will basically mean you get 1 attack. And there's also another very important symbol that is morale. So you have some initial combat strength that the dice determine, but what's going to happen then is you're going to chuck in reinforcement tokens if you want to, and you're going to draw 5 cards from your combat deck, and that's exactly half your combat deck. And for 3 consecutive rounds of combat, you will play 1 card secretly at a time, and that card will not only add more results to the dice, but also it has 2 different abilities. One will trigger globally, and the second one will only trigger if you have the specific unit listed. And that means that when you upgrade these, you can upgrade these with a specific unit build in mind. So for example, if you go for an army that just has a lot of these tiny aspect warriors, you can make that army really good by simply buying combat upgrade cards that are suited for aspect warriors. And yeah, actually, a bunch of aspect warriors could very easily take out this Gargan, which is the best unit that the orcs have, because they have the right combat upgrades. And the decision making is just wonderful, because it's not just about who gets more attack or more defense. At the end of 3 rounds, if there are still surviving units on both sides, it's actually the morale that determines who the winner is. And each unit has a morale value, and the dice add morale and the cards add morale, and you're simply trying to see who outlasted this combat best. And did I mention reinforcement tokens? Yes, there are reinforcement tokens, and it's a really clever thing, because then you're not just thinking about this particular combat, because hey, yeah, you can blow your reinforcement tokens if you want to, and you'll probably win then. But if you don't save them up for the next fight that's likely just around the corner, you will lose that. And here's the thing about combat, and other reviewers have mentioned this, right? Yes, only 2 people at the same time can participate in a combat, and if you are playing with more than 2 players, yes, there will be downtime for the other players who are not involved. And in addition to that, combat is probably one of the things that makes this game really long. A session of combat can last anywhere up to 10 or even 15 minutes. And I can see that probably it will put some people off. But, and this is, I'm being completely honest, to me, I don't mind, because I just found combat really, really engaging to watch, even if I wasn't participating, because number one, everything that happens in this game matters, whether it's something you're doing or your opponent's doing. And at times I found myself rooting for the underdog, because, you know, someone in one of our games, someone attacked a city, and we thought, hey, if you move into a city, don't you, and that's one of the structures that are available in the game, don't you just automatically overtake it? No, actually it creates a conflict area and you still have to fight it. And the city doesn't get any dice to roll to begin with, or it doesn't have any hit points. But you can spend reinforcement tokens to make those things into warriors, and then suddenly there's an actual fight going on. And oh my god, was that exciting, because for a while there, we really thought that the guy who just had no units on that planet and just a couple of reinforcement tokens was going to win. And it's that unpredictability, because you can look at the board and you can go, well, I have these two Titans, surely they're going to take down two cultists and Chaos Space Marine. Maybe, but just like in Warhammer 40,000, it's not about how many units you've got, it's about who has the most Daka.
We couldn't do a review of Forbidden Stars without talking about the artwork, because it is just so nice. I mean, look at this combat card for the biker knobs. You can almost smell and hear the planet being torn up as he roars into battle. And on the faction sheets, the artwork is taken directly from the Warhammer Codex, and on the back of them there's some story and background for your factions as well. And we haven't even talked about the minis yet. Look at this ship. I mean, really look at it. Look how nicely it's done for how small it is. There's detail in the wings, and you can see the mechanics of the engine, of how the ship flies. Okay, so they could have just put in red, yellow, blue and green pawns and be done with it, but they didn't. They made them so detailed and so nice to play with. It's like they're just scaled down Warhammer minis, and for us, that's just what we wanted to see. I think the £80 retail price point might put some people off, because that's the same price as Star Wars Armada, and it's also the same price as a small tin of caviar, but it has a lot more components in it than Star Wars Armada, and it certainly has more replay value than a tin of caviar. It doesn't have quite as many components in it as Twilight Imperium, but Twilight Imperium is a 9-year-old game, and it's kept about the same price for the whole of its 9-year life. So for us, I think we feel that it is worth the £80 price point, because they put so much effort into the art and the design and the making everything just work really, really well together.
Okay, let's talk about rulebooks a little bit. No, wake up, pay attention. This is important, right? I know rulebooks aren't very exciting, but I think what Fantasy Flight Games are doing here is exciting. Their recent games have had 2 rulebooks instead of 1. One is a learn to play kind of thing that includes the main rules but omits the intricacies, and all the intricacies are in the advanced rules. And that's cool. They're trying to get people to the table as soon as possible and playing the game, and that's exciting. I like that someone's innovating on how these are written, but I think they have a way to go before they get it right, unfortunately, because one of the things that cropped up in our game, a 6-hour game, is that during the last round we decided to check, hey, wait a minute, this says that there are no tiebreakers in the learn to play, and then it turns out that in the advanced rules there are tiebreakers, and finding that out after 6 hours was painful for some people and kind of soured the evening. And I wouldn't even be mentioning this, but do you know what? I think the reason I am is because now you know, and now you don't have to make the same mistake I did when I decided not to keep my mouth shut and tell everyone, hey, actually, no, yeah, there are tiebreakers and you're not going to win, and I am. That was mean. I'm sorry. In the words of the ever wisdomous and majestic Rado, it is final thoughts time, everybody, and OMG, do I love Forbidden Stars. It is a grand space opera, and that's exactly what I wanted this game to be. It's so cool, and every single inch of this box is filled with decisions. I love making decisions, and it's just like, do I spend my early turns just attacking everyone and trying to look out and grab the objective tokens, but then if I don't succeed, I've wasted all my turns doing that and not building up my army whilst the others have, all the combat upgrades, or the upgrades, or both, or maybe they haven't built up enough units. What building am I going to get? Am I going to get 2? 2 is a lot. It's really expensive. Can I afford 2? And then I won't be able to build units on those plans. And it just keeps going, and I'm just going to stop my mansplaining now and let Elaine talk and hide behind this neoprene playmat.
As Efka said, there are a lot of decisions to be made in the game, and I used to be indecisive, but now I'm not so sure. And for me, when Efka said about playing this game, I thought, I'm not going to like this a lot because the theme of it, Warhammer in space, I mean, really? That doesn't really appeal to me. But then we started playing it and it was so good. I just enjoyed every decision in that game so much. And it was only about after 5 hours or something, I was enjoying playing the game, but I suddenly realised that I actually desperately wanted a win. I wasn't just having a nice game on a Sunday afternoon, I so wanted a win. And I'd invested so much time and energy and effort into where I was placing things, placing order tokens and ships and units and whatever. And that, for me, was when I really realised that I loved this game.
It's hard to say just how balanced this is, because it's going to take the marvelous community wisdom of Board Game Geek to actually figure out whether a certain strategy is just more viable than the others. And playtesting this game for reviewing is very time consuming because it is incredibly long, and that is going to possibly off-put some of you. And you know who you are. If you've heard us say, oh, this takes about 5 or 6 hours, and you don't like that, you're not going to buy this game. And you heard us say that there is downtime and analysis paralysis, and if that's the deal breaker for you, then you're not going to buy that game, and that is completely fine. But on our buy, play, or stay away scale, which we know is ridiculous, by the way, for me, definite buy.
Yeah, for me, definite buy as well.
So we went to Birmingham UK Games Expo a couple of weeks ago, and something really, really cool happened there. You guys were coming to us and saying hello, and that really never happened to us, and it was so nice to meet all of you, except there was one person who I feel very sorry for, because I was really busy and demoing a game, and I think your name is Jonathan, and I had to say, I'm sorry, I don't have time to talk right now. And oh my god, do I still feel really bad about that. So if you ever see me again, just stop me and we'll have a chat, because it was so cool to meet all of you. And hi, and we really love doing this. So if you enjoyed this video, you need to click the subscribe button, because we're building a board gaming army here, and it's gonna be awesome.